welcome to another episode of the Corgi Town USA podcast. I am Candy, owner of this podcast and lifestyle brand. In my lap is Chuckles, our spokescorg, and Kat and Digby are joining us remotely today.
Yes, we are. Okay, you're done. We are joining remotely. That's what happens with weekend traffic.
That's all right. We got you here. I mean,
Yes.
we had to work at it, but well, we have an old friend who does frequent our podcast from time to time on various seasons and wanted to bring them on to talk about Valhunds, Swedish Valhunds. These are we've seen some popularity growth with them as Corgis have grown in popularity. The Swedish Valhund is very similar in stature. I believe they come in one color. And we no experts here. I just wanted to have the conversation with somebody who has one. And Kat, are you familiar with Valhunds?
I am not familiar with Valhunds. The most Swedish stuff I'm familiar with are meatballs. I know. Horrible.
Oh, hey, we all love the meatballs.
Yep.
But yeah, so the Swedish Valhund, again, it's this is more kind of informational. I want to talk to somebody who has one because they've grown in popularity because corgis have grown in popularity and they have a similar statue. And for those not familiar, likely listening and Googling a photo if they don't know, they look almost like wolf corgis. It looks like just like a corgi, same stature, short legs, long back, kind of herding breed stature, but
Okay.
looks more like a wolf in that package.
Well, I'd love to find out more from Sandy about their temperament, and then there's always, well, let's bring Sandy on. I know that's not my job; it's your job to bring Sandy on. But I have so many questions.
Cat's flipping the script on us.
And you know what? And my biggest thing is going to be the same that we see with corgis, the same that we see with every breed that becomes popular like fashion, and that is the breeding, the temperament, who should have them, and who perhaps should look at a different breed of fur baby love.
Is it right for your lifestyle? Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's kind of that's what's happening, I believe, right now with the Malinois, because they came out with the movie with was it Channing Tatum, and then he had the dog and he's a Malinois, and of course it's very heartwarming, and you see this beautiful animal who, by the way, is extremely well trained to do that film.
Yes.
Everything was done on cue with trainers, and people say, I would love to have a dog like that. But those that don't realize that's a very serious working breed and not really for pet households.
No.
So things like that, sometimes entertainment doesn't do a whole lot of favors for breeds, but
very, very much so.
As we digress on that, let's go ahead and bring Sandy Grambort back on. Welcome back to our show.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Always good to see you.
Yeah.
Staying nice and cool here in Texas today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Usually Texas is hot and wet.
Well, I got in my car yesterday. It was 110 on the car thermometer thing, and I'm like, oh, it can't be real. I know it wasn't 110, but the car thought it was. So.
Oh, well, we're in Phoenix, so that's normal for
us.
Yeah,
that's a dry heat there. So.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
You're welcome.
For those of you who are new here, we have a new episode every week about the corgi lifestyle and pet lifestyle, and it's typically corgi centric, but we do like to focus on dogs and pets in general and what that lifestyle looks like, and try to bring you some informational as well as entertaining information that as parents you might want to hear. And Sandy here has a lot of experience. If you were able to join us, we're in our 4th season now. If you were able to join us one of the previous seasons, you've probably seen Sandy. We've had some very deep conversations here on the show. But Sandy, please, for those new, please introduce yourself and tell everyone why we like having you here, what you've done.
Well, in a quick nutshell, I don't do the work anymore, but for about 25 years, I did animal control and animal welfare work here locally in Texas, as well as many places around the country. My favorite part about that work was being able to work with people and their pets and solve people-animal problems. As I told so many people over the years, animal control work is, people think because it has the word animal in it, it's all about animals, but really animals don't create their own problems. People do. Animals can't solve their own problems. People can. So if you're not a people person and willing and able and interested in working with people, then the animal business really isn't for you. And that's where that was my strength, I think. I mean, I enjoyed working with people and I enjoyed helping them solve problems. So um, years and background in with horses and some livestock and cattle, sheep and goats, and of course dogs and cats. And my true love is wildlife, um, which I do just observing and on the side, and dogs. And now in my retirement years, I'm doing some sports with the dogs here in the house, which is a first for me.
Yeah,
We've always just fed and cleaned up after them and went and took care of other people's dogs, and now I'm having time to enjoy our own. So having a good time with that. And
that's
then a new
exciting.
puppy. Yeah.
That's exciting. It's, you were just keeping them alive and healthy as best to your
Well,
abilities before, and now you're actually getting to have some fun.
yeah, it took me a while to get there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it took me. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said, it was a long time before in working with kittens and puppies in shelters, and then you forget really that they're actually cute.
Right. Right. That's
For
that's
real.
the yeah, no, that's the work part of it, right?
Spend so much time cleaning up, diarrhea and vomit and getting them healthy and fixing broken legs and skin conditions and mange and the smells and the noises that come with taking care of animals. And then you forget that they are actually cute and engaging creatures.
Yeah.
So I'm remembering that. It's awesome.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because I think about that. I've thought about that in dog training because I've been doing dog training, and I've noticed that a lot of the trainers that I've worked with don't. I don't want to say they're not interested in the dogs, but they don't. They're definitely not. They're there to do a job. They don't really interact. Whereas
Yeah.
me, I've
It's a
had
trap.
yeah, I've had to
Yeah.
learn to kind of control my you can't get stupid with them when they're in your training class. "Oh, hi, you're so cute. Let me rub your butt." You have to be there to teach them how to do well and how to be successful, and I think that kind of is along the same vein, just like in veterinary offices. You think, "Why does nobody here really seem to" not that that's too common, but a lot of times we hear that it's bedside manner that sometimes can be lacking, and I
Well, true.
I
You
think
know,
it's
my
probably because of that.
Yeah, my favorite veterinarians over the years, and we've known a lot, have been the veterinarians that took the time to talk to me as a human being and
Yes.
consider me as a person and gave me that consideration as the owner and not just the person who wrote the check.
Right.
So,
And what's this pet? What's sick? What do we need to fix? Instead of this is someone's child, this is someone's family member
right,
that
right.
they need our help and guidance. I love my vet partly for that reason. She told me when I brought in because I had an accidental puppy. That's my Mortimer, and then of course Chuckles was my on purpose puppy. But when I bring them in for their puppy, both of their puppies, she just was so tickled. She's like, you know what? As I get older, I want to let my new vets do all the hard stuff. This is what I want to do. I want to bring in the puppies. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, we're actually here to talk about Swedish Valhunds. And so, what I wanted to ask you about, Sandy, and again, none of us here are really experts. Maybe an expert will hear us and want to tell us more and educate us, but I wanted to talk to somebody who has one. So, please tell us about your baby.
Well, I want to reiterate that I am certainly no expert, but every day I learn a little bit more, and I love that about this pup. Um, He's been with us. He came home with us in July of last year. I actually flew to North Carolina and had been conversing with the breeder for months um, about perhaps getting a puppy from them. Um, and when he told me in May of last year that he had a litter and that one of them had my name on it, I was like, "Oh my God, what do you do now?" I mean, it was really happening. So anyway, I flew to North Carolina, picked up this pup, fell in love like in less than 5 seconds. The love affair continues today. Over the years, we've had the rescue work we've done, and my favorite dogs in shelters have always been the prick-eared dogs, the shepherds and the corgis and the cattle dogs, the herding breeds.
Yeah.
Malinois have a tough time. You mentioned them earlier in shelters, and the herding breeds usually, in my opinion, had a much harder time in a shelter, just because of who they are as a breed of dog,
Work
and
drive.
their temperaments. So we did a lot of rescue work with that particular those kind of breeds, the herding breeds, and we focused as time went on with the corgis. Um, so with all that said, kind of losing my train of thought here, but the Valhund, I started seeing them back in, oh my gosh, probably, when have I been, how long have I been on Facebook off and on? I guess probably like 2013 and 14. I saw my first one in a picture and I'm like, holy gosh, what is that dog? It looks like a wolf corgi, and it was a meme, a wolf corgi thing, a wolf
Hmm.
corgi meme. I did a little research, discovered they were called Swedish Valhunds. And they are the Swedish version of a cattle dog. They've been
Oh,
around for thousands of years, going back to the Viking times, which
They
was also,
predate. They predate corgis.
oh, well,
Yeah.
there are some
Right.
folks who will argue with that,
Okay.
but
Oh, it's
if
up
you
for
go to
debate.
the, yeah, if you go to the Swedish Valhund Club of America website, pardon me, they have a pretty good history on the breed, which is pretty comprehensive. Um, and doesn't delve into the differences of opinions, but they date back over 1,000 years, the time of the Vikings, and in the 8th or 9th century, historians wrote that the breed was either brought to Wales and crossed, with corgis, or the corgis were brought to Sweden and introduced to the Valhunds, and that itself is in kind of up in the air. Um, there's a lot more people who are students of the breed who could probably go into that information in detail. That would not be me. I will read their stuff when it comes out. But in the meantime, I'm just taking the overview and going and rolling with it.
Oh, no,
sure.
we appreciate that. And most
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
dear listener, dear viewer, most of you that follow us are pet enthusiasts. So that's why I thought, Sandy, that your input would be so helpful
yeah,
because you live, travel, and work with one.
yeah,
It's not just, oh, I know about Valhounds. It's that you live with one. Yeah.
yeah. And we have a house full of corgis too. We have
Hmm.
four,
Hmm.
uh, two cardigans and two Pembrokes, and we've had corgis in the house since forever. It seems like. So we're used to, and we've done a lot of rescue with corgis. So we know the corgi breeds, both Cardis and the Pems, pretty well, as most people who have a lot of them do. You get to know them really well pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Yes.
So the Valhund, I didn't quite know what to expect. I'd heard that they were, loyal and easygoing and cheerful and joyful and loved to learn and all those things. And we didn't know because I had never seen one in real life because they're just not common.
Hmm.
So the first puppies that I saw was at the breeder's house, and I walked into his home, and there were all these puppies. He turned them loose from their pen, and they come galloping through the kitchen. And here comes mom, and here comes dad, and here comes a little girl from last year. So there was like 10 Valhounds in the kitchen, and I was completely smitten, to use that word.
Yes.
It was
Oh,
crazy.
I
So
love the picture you've painted here. My heart.
yes.
oh, it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, one of the best breeders I've ever met. We know quite a few good ones. There are folks who will argue about breeding purebred dogs, but I'm not here to take up that argument. I'm here to tell you that the breeder that we met, from whom this puppy came, I love the guy. He's awesome. He does a wonderful job. Um, so I picked him up, got on a plane the next morning, and brought him home, and we've been in love ever since.
Aw.
He's
So
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, so he is, it sounds like a little bit of Australian cattle dog, which we have here at our household in our hearts. We had an Australian cattle dog. Well, my fiance had many, and I had one. Um, and and of course we've got the corgi, so it's a little bit of this Swedish dog and potentially a little bit of the cattle and a little bit of the corgi. Am I hearing that right?
You are, yeah, and that's kind of what we've tapped into here and learning about Parker as he's grown. He was a year old in May, and he came home with me July 19th last year. So we're coming up on our 1 year gotcha day pretty soon.
Aw.
Um, we have one of the best dogs that we've ever had here was our cattle dog Bill, Bill the dog, and he lived to be 13. We lost him to progressive retinal atrophy, and in some of those side effects. But
Yeah.
he was probably the best dog we ever had. He was also one of the hardest dogs we ever had. Um, but we're a cattle dog family. We love the corgis. We love the herding breeds. They're tough, but they're amazing. And to me, what I've learned with this pup is the Valhund embodies the best of all of those cattle dog breeds so
Nice.
far. Um,
And so when we say, for our audience, when we say the best of all those breeds, what points are we talking about?
well, I will start with number one, intelligence. Um, the other Valhunds that belong to friends that I've met in person have all been extremely, extremely smart. They're extremely engaged. They love to learn. They're asking you to learn things. They would be like a little kid who brings a book to mom and says, "Teach me how to read this." Like
Oh,
every
wow.
5 minutes of the day, they'd be grabbing another book and saying, "We haven't read this one yet. We haven't read this one yet. Mom, what's this word?" So and that's so to do an analogy right there, that would be the little Valhund, always bringing something to you and saying, "Let's figure this out. It looks like fun. It's great." So number one is their super bright intelligence and their level of engagement with what's going on around them. Number two is their joy. And this has been across the board with everyone I've met. They're just joyful dogs. They they love to meet people. They love to meet other dogs. They love to try new things. And there is a caveat with a couple of these deals, which goes back to being a cattle dog. And if you know cattle dogs, Cat, like you just said, you know that herding dogs will sometimes be either one way or the other. They're either super, super courageous and they'll jump into the pool without knowing how deep it is, or they'll chase the cow without knowing where it's supposed to go, and they just dive in head first.
Yeah.
Or they hold back and they go, "Nah, let's think about this a little bit."
And I think Wigan, I got to meet Wigan and become his mommy in later years. Eric had Wigan since birth. So we had Wigan, Eric had Wigan 15 and a half years. And I think Wigan might have been a little bit more timid. Again, when I became his mama, he was about 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. And still, still a love, still a wonderful dog.
Yeah. But as a herding dog, I'm sure you noticed that he had, once in a while he would say, "I have a little bit of fear with that particular thing, and
Yes.
I'm going to need a little support to get through it. Let's figure this out." And they hold back a little bit. So Valhounds are very similar in that. Parker has some things that he's got some fear levels on. We work through it. I give him that room, to learn about the pros and cons of what he's looking at, and let him know that it's a positive thing, that I'm going to help him, and that furthers our bond a little bit. The other Valhounds that I've met have had similar things. Some have a little bit of fear of, a person leaning over them, which is a normal dog thing, but in a cattle dog, they can sure make it like pretty dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there is that within the breed where they can pick things that are frightening and they can grow it into a giant monster. And that is an opportunity to bond further with them and get them. And once they're through it, boom, it's on their list. So far, that's been my experience with this little fella. Once he's over, he was afraid of the blow dryer for his very first bath. He's like, "Oh my God, it's going to blow my ears off," or whatever.
It's a
Whatever goes
monster.
through their
I mean,
minds.
he just panicked, and I thought, "Dude, it's okay. Just take a deep breath. You'll be fine." So it took him a little bit of time. I turned the blow dryer on low. We fed him tons of treats, did all kinds of positive stuff with him, and now the blow dryer is like a giant game. So, you know,
It's
and we
the
made,
reframing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So their joy, their occasional, fear things, which is a normal cattle dog thing, and Australian cattle dogs, border collies, pick a herding dog. They're all going to be like that, and the Valhund is no different. Um, and their loyalty. He's a little silly. He's just a year old, and he was like, I'm like, "Parker, come here," and he's like, but just a minute, I got to check this out. I'll be right back. But if I disappear, like if we're out in the barn, if I disappear, he's like, "Oh my God, where did you go? Where are you?" So, and he's zooming to find me. So the loyalty thing is real similar to an Australian cattle dog, and I love that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so those three things I think are the top three. Not to mention they're gorgeous dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had said something about color a little bit ago, and they basically come in all colors of the wolf.
Okay.
So there are, I've not seen a black one yet, but I have seen online white ones that are truly stunning. Parker is a silver sable, and a good friend of ours, just north of here, has a red sable, and he is, as he's getting more mature, he is truly stunning. That color is just, I mean, it's phenomenal.
I can
So
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they come in all colors of the wolf.
I
Now,
wonder.
I was going to say, as I understand it, cattle dogs are born pure white, and then they
Yeah,
turn their color,
yeah. Then they get their speckles and freckles and stuff. Yeah.
and then their little start. Is that the same with the Valhund? Or
No, no,
okay,
they're born little dark little midgets. They're pretty
okay, Candy,
tiny.
you can take over your show again.
No, that's okay. I just that what you said about them there being a white variety of coloring. I wonder if that is high risk, if that's more of do you get accidental whites, because as we know there's a big push for white corgis as well, but it's very,
Yeah.
very problematic because of the double merle gene
Um,
and
right.
I wonder if it's the same with the Valhund.
Well, so here again, I'm not an expert on genetics or on breeding because
Sure.
I'm just not a student of either yet. But I will tell you that when I did the research on getting a puppy from this breed, everywhere I looked, they consistently said that the breed itself was super, super healthy with very, very few inherited genetic issues like DM and corgis.
You're making me
Um,
want one.
Me
well,
too.
and the reason for that, gals, is because they're not popular. They have not been backyard bred
Overbred,
Exactly.
yeah.
forever and ever and ever. And the people who are breeding them are doing a very, very careful job to maintain genetic diversity in a very shallow gene pool. And I'll just briefly on that, with the research that's on the Swedish Valhund Club of America's website, you can go to their history and you can read that basically in 1947, which for all intents and purposes was yesterday,
Yeah.
two gentlemen over in, where were they? I got my notes here. Yeah, I forget. Bjorn was one of the guys' names. Um,
Iceland, maybe?
and no, in
No.
Sweden. They were in
Oh,
Sweden.
Sweden. Okay.
They ran into each other and they remembered the Swedish Valhund from their childhood and they couldn't find anymore. So they started searching and they found five that were still in existence in Sweden and they gathered those dogs up and they mated them carefully. From those five, they had a few puppies, and that was the foundation for today's Swedish Valhund. They went to the UK in, where are my notes here? In 1974. So
Okay.
there again, I mean, just yesterday.
Super recent.
And they started being bred there carefully by people who were wanting to preserve the breed. And they came over to the United States brought here by a woman named Marilyn Fell in Rhode Island in 1983. And
Oh,
the first litter was born in the United States in 1986. So
That's within
that
my
was
lifetime.
yeah.
right. I mean,
Young.
I was not young really, but I was not 100 years old. But I mean, that was yesterday for me as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's how recent this dog is. So to get back to your original thing was, a statement was about their health because they're not backyard bred dogs yet, and because they never should be because they're a pretty cool dog. They're still very, very strong and healthy genetically, even though those genetics are very, very there's not many of them out there. So the breeders who are doing it now are doing a great job.
And I've heard similar things about cardigans versus Pembrokes. Now we have the quote unquote American corgi, which
Yeah,
is the cardigan and Pembroke cross, which I haven't been convinced that that's a good idea because I feel like we don't have those health implications of what that looks like, among other things. But that's
yeah,
also not really a registered breed that is crossbreeding. And I've heard aside from kind of that sort of newer approach that the cardigans are typically you get fewer of the backyard breeding. It's that bad cardigan breeding practices are less common than bad Pembroke breeding practices. That's
Yeah, I
what I've
think you're
heard.
right there.
Yeah,
I think research would back you up for sure.
yeah. And this is buzz. Again, I'm not claiming any certainties, but this is buzz from breeder friends we know, rescue friends we know, people
Right.
that work in it. Yeah.
It's always going to be with anything. Popularity makes for bad practices, and you could say with fashion, I want a Coach bag. Oh, look, there's a Coach knockoff. You can say it with, absolutely anything. And unfortunately, if you get a Coach knockoff bag, you get a bag that might fall apart that may not be leather. Oh, well. You get a knockoff of a fur baby, and there are problems, as we know with our beloved Hammer. There are problems with the fur baby.
Booger.
And Booger. There's heartache for mama and dada. There's so much going on. And so, again, carefully research, know your breeder. Sandy, we know you do a ton and a half of research and then a little extra on top. Know your breeder, know what's going on, know where it's coming from, and know that a more popular breed, you've got to be a lot bit more careful.
Yeah. For those that are not familiar with the Corgi committee, one member we have is my Booger. She's the only girl in the household. And unfortunately, she is the poster child of bad breeding, poorly chosen for a family, not researched, et cetera, just kind of the poster child of a dog that might wind up in a shelter. I was lucky enough to get her as a rehome before she wound up at the pound, but she was so inundated with fleas that we thought she was overweight until we dipped her. That's how full of flea dirt her fur coat was. And she's never been more than 16, 17 pounds. And everybody says, oh, she was a runt. I don't think she was a runt. I think she was poorly cared for at the beginning of her life and didn't get proper nutrition and didn't develop well. You can kind of see that in her stature. You can kind of put her up next to Chuckles, my by design Corgi over here I joke about, but Chuckles, you can tell, is very well bred. He comes from a show line and he's got very good structure and conformation. Poor Booger.
Somebody who took concern and care with the genetics.
Right. And Booger, I'm fairly certain, probably came from a backyard situation. The people that had her never had her inside, I don't believe, because she was supposed to be 2. We think she was actually 4. But I had to house train her, which tells me she was never inside, and her teeth were black. So I don't know if they were feeding her dirt, but we've had most of those removed, and it's just problem after problem. Of course, I don't love her any less. I just hate that she suffers, and I feel like we're always trying to get ahead of that suffering. And so that's why these things are important. There's a little bit of division with people say, oh, we don't care purebred versus I understand. Of course we don't either. It's not a question of these animals being any more or less important. It's that it's better for their health and well-being if they're mindfully bred because of those reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've seen it. So.
Yeah. And hey, it happens in people too. The richest of the rich, the royal families.
Oh boy.
There's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Cat getting us in trouble again.
Yeah.
Not in trouble. These are facts.
Yeah. Well, I feel like hopefully some of the work that's being done in animal breeding is going to help us a little bit with humans and health as well. I know it's happening with degenerative myelopathy. As everyone knows, I serve on the board for Shade Out DM. So we kind of have our finger on that pulse of what the research looks like, and some of the research of the genetic markers, the SOD1 gene and some others. Some of the things we're trying to figure out why, just because they don't present, why some do, some don't, even though they have the same genetic markers. What is that? Is that environment, etc.? Some of those things that are being researched, that's actually helping humans with the ALS research, because it's the same disease in different species. So before we get too far off of that, we don't want to keep Sandy all night, but I did want to ask you, tell us about the sports that you are doing with Parker.
Well, because he likes to learn and because he actually demands some sort of learning environment, which is something to be cautious. If anybody, any of your listeners are looking into this breed, be prepared for that because they are not couch potatoes. I mean, they'll lay on the couch with you, but good Lord, you better be prepared to do something, which I wanted to. I
Mhm.
wanted to do all the things. I
Yeah.
wanted to do herding and barn hunt and scent work and agility and rally. I mean, pick it. I was like, let's do it. Well, reality hit me upside the head. Each of those sports requires a ton of time and a ton of commitment. And
And money.
And
yeah,
money.
well,
Yep.
Yeah.
then there's that little
Money.
thing. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So
Yeah.
we dipped our toes in barn hunt, and we're going to wait on that because he chose to be a little bit fearful of the rat.
Oh.
Um, and I'm
Okay.
going to respect that. It's okay. His prey drive. He's just a year old, and um, um, his prey drive isn't 100% right now, which is fine. He lives with a cat here in the house, and we don't want him, chasing and doing the
Yes.
predator thing with all of our small animals. So
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. So we've been doing scent work, which he completely loves and loves to. He's one of my instructors that we went to class a couple days ago, and she posted a picture of us working a scent on a line of chairs, and she said, "Here's Parker, all business," and he is all business. We do scent work with Dave, my 11 and a half year old Pembroke, and Dave completely loves it. And Dave is like, he explodes off the start line and runs into the search area, and he's snorting and growling, and even the judges laugh with Dave. And Parker
Yeah.
walks across the start line and goes to work. So they're
Mm.
two different dogs, but they
Yeah.
both love the sport. So we're doing scent work,
Okay.
which is an AKC sport. Nose work is UKC. They could call it different things, but they're the same deal. They search for, a particular oil hidden in a scent, in an environment with little scent vessels. So that's an easy way to say that. What else are we
Okay.
doing? We tried herding. I went to 3 herding lessons, and there again said he was really too emotionally immature to handle all the complicated things that come with developing a herding dog. Number one is prey drive. You have to have a pretty good one. Number two is you have to have a good foundation of behaviors. Sit, stay, and hear. Those are foundational principles. You can just turn them loose in a field of sheep.
Right.
Um, and the other one is respect for and no fear of the livestock. Two different things, really. So we're going to take some time. I have sheep here
Yeah.
at home, so we're going to take some time and see if he won't develop into a decent little herding dog, because I really want to do that. I mean, that just
Yeah.
slays me. I'm excited about that. But if he doesn't want to, that's okay. You know.
Yep. Yep.
So
I know Eric did a little herding with some of his earlier little fur babies, and he said it was quite fun. He was always an agility person, and so were his dogs, except Wiggin. Wiggin kind of liked the agility, but not so much. You bring up an excellent point. Let the dog tell you. Don't let the dog rule your life. Let the dog tell you what it is interested in. Let the dog tell you what it enjoys, what he or she enjoys.
yeah.
Um, and then that's so much better of a bond, and that's so much happier of a dog. I've done
Yeah,
a
you're
little
absolutely right. You know where I learned that? Actually, I learned that in horses. So
bit.
people that buy a quarter horse, and because it's a quarter horse, they can run barrels and chase cows, or the quarter horse can get on the racetrack and run a quarter mile faster than any other horse. Horses like people, dogs like people. They're all individuals. They all
Yeah,
have their likes, their dislikes, their fears, their joys, and it's up to the owner, the pet parent, or the horse owner, or whatever. In this case, the pet parent, to observe your dog, to bond with them, to understand who they are so that you know what they really are going to be good at, what they want to do. What they want to do matters.
Yes.
It really does. Because if they
exactly.
want to do
100%.
it, you've got a willing partner in whatever it is that you can dream up.
And I always explain that in dog training. If we expect perfection, we're probably not going to get it.
No,
Nope.
It's and perfection really shouldn't be the expectation.
it's a
It's
journey.
Yes, it's a journey, and learning to bond with your animal as well as maybe have some structure. It's good for both of you, but learning to communicate effectively and have some manners for safety mainly and for overall joy, much more relaxed. Your pet is more relaxed, you're more relaxed, not perfection, not high expectations of perfectly obedient. It's more just managing, letting your animal tell you what they like and they don't like and what you're allowed to tolerate in your household.
Oh, it's a
Yep.
journey. Yeah.
Yes,
So
100%.
everything that we do together, and I've learned this since we started. I started doing the sports with our dogs here. Is that everything you do is a journey, and it's
Yes.
one small step at a time, and that journey is actually super joyful.
Well,
It
thank
is.
Um,
you so much for sharing that with us and telling us about your journey with Parker. And we don't want to keep you all night, so I'm going to let you go so you can go enjoy some more of that. But again, I really appreciate you coming and telling us what you've learned. And I've definitely been educated from some of these takeaways that you've taught us today. What about you, Kat?
Absolutely. And it does apply to every breed, every dog, everyone out
Absolutely.
there that is looking to bring a new fur baby pup or
Shelter dog or a
shelter
purpose
dog.
bred dog. Absolutely. We've
It
had everything
applies
in
to
this house. Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Just fill in the blank and know, what do they like? What do they need? What do you need? And find that common ground. So thank you
The
so much
bond,
again,
right?
Sandy.
Yeah.
You're
And
This is
welcome. Thank
I
you.
did want to give one final thought because you've told us some already. What would you tell for someone listening or viewing? What would you tell if they said, "You know what? I've been researching these. I've heard about them." What would you tell the person who wants a Valhund?
That they need to find a good breeder, establish a relationship with that breeder, so that they're actually, when you have issues or questions, you can reach back out to them, which I did, and I've been chit chatting with Parker's breeder regular since the day he came home. We're friends, and that's a good relationship to have,
yeah.
Yes.
especially with a breed you don't know about. My breeder's been doing this thing with Valhund since 2005 or six, so he's been involved for quite a while. So have a good relationship. Find a breeder you can work with that you appreciate and respect their program. Um, Make sure it's a breeder who is working to the benefit of the breed and not just to put dollars in their pocket,
Yes.
which is going to start happening with Valhunds. So if you care about the breed, then purchase one responsibly
I would say that for corgis as well. Yeah,
as
those are all
well.
great points.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate it. We hope you have a good
You're
rest of your day.
welcome. It's good to see you ladies again. Have a
Good
good
to
Good to
see
see
you
afternoon.
you.
too. You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye. We both want Valhunds now.
We both want Valhunds now. Yes. I love talking to Sandy. I so appreciate the work that she's always done.
I do too.
And her perspective. It is just the cleanest, most direct perspective. And I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, I think if you want to get a full story, and this applies to most principles in life, talk to somebody who's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Exactly.
And that would be our Sandy. So, well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe. We have new episodes every week, all things corgi and dog pet lifestyle from the Corgi Committee at Corgi Town, USA. That's me, Candy, Chuckles, Mortimer, Booger, Hammer, and Cat and Digby coming remotely. We'll see you next week.
Bye.